The world of Trask was dark under a red sky. Smoke rose from broken houses, and the smell of burning wood filled the air. For years, the Trask Dominion ruled this part of the galaxy with strength and fear. Every weaker race bowed to them. They were hunters, predators, and killers. They believed no one could ever stand against them. On this day, they marched through a ruined human village. Their claws tapped the black stone ground. Their eyes searched for movement, but they saw nothing except dust, fire, and silence. To them, this silence was normal. After all, humans were supposed to be weak prey. Then, a sound broke the silence. Footsteps, slow, heavy, steady. The Trask hunters froze. They looked at one another with confusion. Nothing was supposed to be alive. They had burned this village to ash. From behind a half-destroyed wall, a single figure walked out. He was tall for a human. His helmet was scratched. His armor was broken. Blood ran down his left arm. But still, he walked with calm steps. On his chest, burned but clear, one word shone: Marines. The hunters hissed in surprise. They had never faced this word before. To them, it was just a strange sound. Yet deep inside, they felt something. Their instincts whispered danger. Something ancient inside their predator minds told them, "Do not move closer." The human stopped only a few meters away. He did not lift a weapon. He did not hide. His calm eyes studied the hunters as if he was not the prey but the predator. One Trask, larger than the others, tried to break the tension. He roared, raising his clawed hand, and charged forward. Dust rose as his heavy body rushed at the human. The human moved like lightning. In one smooth motion, he caught the alien's wrist, twisted hard, and slammed the giant into the dirt. A sharp crack echoed. The roar turned into a scream. The others gasped. Their leader, the strongest among them, lay broken at the human's feet. The human did not smile. He did not show anger. He simply looked at the others with cold, steady eyes. He tapped his chest once, where the word was written, and spoke in a voice calm but heavy. Marine. The sound carried across the burning ruins. The Trask hunters felt their throats tighten. Their weapons shook in their hands. They wanted to rush him together, but their legs felt heavy. Something inside them told them they would not win. This was not prey. This was not a weak creature to hunt. This was something else. One hunter stepped back without realizing. Another lowered his weapon. None of them dared to attack again. The human stood tall, still bleeding, still alone, but unbroken. He did not need to move. His stillness was stronger than any attack. The hunters looked into his eyes and felt the weight of something they had never felt before: fear. For the first time in their long history, the hunters of Trask hesitated. For the first time, they were the ones hunted, and for the first time, they heard the word that would haunt them, the word they would never forget. Marines. The silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of victory. It was the silence of fear. The Trask hunters did not stay in the ruined village. They carried their broken leader and left in silence. None of them looked back. None of them dared. Behind them, the lone Marine stood among the smoke and fire, watching until they disappeared into the distance. His body was hurt, but his spirit was solid like steel. He did not chase them. He did not need to. The fear was already planted. The hunters returned to their base hidden in the rocky hills. The guards at the entrance hissed in confusion when they saw the wounded leader. The strongest among them had never fallen before. Now he lay weak, his arm twisted and broken, his eyes wide with something strange: fear. The other hunters argued in sharp voices. It was one human. He should not have survived the fire. He defeated Korash, our champion, like nothing. The commander of the base entered the hall. His armor was heavy, his eyes hard. He looked down at the broken hunter and demanded answers. What happened out there? What defeated you? The hunters hesitated. Their throats felt dry. Finally, one of them spoke. His voice shook as he tried to explain. A human, a warrior. He called himself Marine. The word hung in the air. The commander frowned. Marine, a title? A tribe? What is this? None of the hunters could explain. They only knew what they felt. a force that made their predator hearts tremble, something that turned their courage to ice. The commander growled. "You disgrace yourselves, fear of one broken human. We are Trask! We are the Dominion! We crush entire worlds!" But deep inside, even he felt the unease. He could smell it in the air, the scent of fear clinging to his warriors. They had fought many species before. None had ever returned like this. The broken champion, Korash, lifted his head weakly. His voice was hoarse but clear. "Do not underestimate them. That one man fought like a storm. His eyes? I have never seen eyes like that. Not prey, not even enemy. Something worse. Something that does not fall." The commander silenced him, but the damage was already done. The word marine spread quickly through the base like fire through dry grass. Soldiers whispered it in the halls. Workers muttered it under their breath. Some laughed nervously. Others did not laugh at all. The fear was contagious. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the galaxy, other predators were listening. A scout ship from another alien species picked up fragments of Trask communication. Words carried across the void, one human, marine. They recorded it, puzzled by the strange fear in the voices of their rivals. On distant stations, rumors began to grow. Humans, it was said, had warriors unlike any other. Warriors who did not break. Warriors who stood even when alone, even when bleeding. Back in the Trask base, the commander prepared for war. He ordered more troops. He demanded the capture of more humans to test their strength. But in secret, his hands shook when he remembered the look on his warriors' faces. He could not stop hearing the word that haunted them, Marine. And somewhere, in the silence of space, the lone Marine was not finished. He had already sent a signal. Reinforcements were coming. The predators did not know it yet, but the first seed of fear had been planted. Soon, it would grow into something much larger. The Trask believed themselves to be the hunters of the galaxy, but now, for the first time, they felt the shadow of something greater. The aftershock of one battle had already begun to spread, and soon, the whole galaxy would learn the truth hidden in a single human word. Marines. The Trask commander did not sleep that night. Even inside the safety of his iron walls, he felt uneasy. His soldiers whispered in the corridors. The word Marine echoed again and again, like a ghost haunting every shadow. The commander growled in anger. Fear was poison. If it spread, his army would collapse before the next war even began. He needed answers. He called for the lore keepers, aliens who stored ancient records of the Dominion. They were old, bent, and weak, but they knew the history of many battles, even those that rulers had tried to bury. The keepers entered the chamber, carrying dusty data tablets and cracked memory crystals. The commander barked his order. "Search our archives. Find if this word, Marine, has ever appeared before." The keepers hesitated. Their eyes shifted. One of them whispered, "That word is forbidden." The commander slammed his claw against the table. The sound echoed like thunder. "Nothing is forbidden for me. Show me." Slowly, the lore keepers obeyed. They connected their crystals to the old hollow table. Blue light filled the chamber, showing broken fragments of past wars. At first, the records showed victories. Worlds burned, species enslaved, enemies crushed under the Trask army. The commander smirked. But then, the images changed. One keeper's claws trembled as he activated a hidden file. "This was long ago, before your time, before even the Dominion spread so far. We fought a species on the edge of the galaxy. They called themselves humans." The chamber fell silent. The blue light showed an ancient battlefield. Not one Marine, not a few, hundreds of them. Lines of humans in heavy armor, standing shoulder to shoulder, weapons shining, eyes unbroken. The Trask army had been larger, stronger, more advanced. Yet in the records, the Trask forces fell again and again. The Marines fought with unity no predator could match. They moved like one body, one mind. Where one fell, another stepped forward. Where many enemies charged, the Marines stood their ground. The commander watched in disbelief as alien war machines were torn apart. Ships fell from the sky. The humans bled, but they never surrendered. Their battle cries shook even the old recordings, and through the static, one word repeated, "Marines!" The lore keeper's voice cracked. "We tried to erase these records, to forget the shame. But the truth is still here. The Marines broke us once. The Dominion only survived because they withdrew, not because we won." The commander's claws dug into the metal table. His soldiers were not supposed to hear this. Yet the truth was clear. The fear his hunters felt was not new. It was old, ancient, buried under dust and lies. The Trask had once feared the same word before, and now it had returned. One soldier who stood guard at the chamber door could not stop shaking. He had heard enough. That night, when he returned to the barracks, he whispered the story to his squad. They whispered it to others. By the next day, half the base was repeating the tale. The Marines had defeated them before. The Marines could do it again. The commander ordered silence. He threatened punishment. He roared until his throat ached. But it was too late. Fear traveled faster than his commands. Across the stars, other predator species also listened. They searched their own old records, and many of them, to their horror, found the same thing. Battles lost, armies broken, and always the same human word at the center. Marines. In the darkness of space, the lone Marine who survived on Trask soil waited. He knew reinforcements were coming. He knew the galaxy would soon remember the legend. But what he did not know was that the enemies had already remembered, and their fear was only beginning. The Trask Dominion could not allow fear to spread without control. The commander, angry and restless, decided that action was the only cure. Words could not be silenced by threats alone. He needed proof that the Marines were not invincible. So he formed a new plan. He gathered a full strike force, 20 hunters armed with plasma rifles, supported by armored crawlers and air drones. They were ordered to find and kill any remaining humans on Trask soil. The commander's voice echoed through the war hall. "You will hunt them. You will crush them. You will drag their bodies back for all to see. The name Marine will mean nothing once more." The hunters roared in agreement, but many of their voices shook. The word had already grown like a shadow inside their minds. Still, no one dared to refuse the order. Far away, in the ruins of another burned village, a small squad of Marines had landed. They were only 5, scarred, tired, and short on supplies, but their discipline was unbroken. Their leader, Sergeant Hale, surveyed the smoke-filled horizon. "Eyes open," he said calmly. "They'll come for us. Let them." The Marines nodded without fear. Each one checked his weapon, each one ready. They did not speak of retreat. They did not speak of survival. They only spoke of the mission. Hours later, the ground shook with the approach of the Trask strike force. The crawlers rolled across the dirt, the air drones circled above, and hunters spread in formation. To the predators, this was overwhelming power. To the Marines, it was just another test. The first shot came from the shadows. A drone fell from the sky, smoke trailing as it crashed. The Trask shouted in alarm, firing wildly into the ruins. But the Marines were not there. They were everywhere, from broken rooftops, from deep alleys, from shattered walls. Bullets struck precise and cold. Every Marine fired with the same rhythm, the same control. Not wasted shots, not wild bursts. Each trigger pull brought down a predator. One Trask roared and charged with his plasma rifle. He was cut down before he could even take 5 steps. Another tried to flank, but a Marine's knife flashed in the smoke, and he fell silently. The crawlers opened fire, burning holes through stone. But the Marines moved faster. They spread, they regrouped, they struck from angles the Trask could not predict. To the predators, it felt like they were fighting shadows. Sergeant Hale's voice guided his squad. "Calm, steady, unbroken. Left flank, 3 down. Hold your fire. Wait, now, move!" The hunters panicked. They fired at ghosts. Their roars turned into screams. Drones fell, crawlers burned, and their numbers dropped fast. Then it happened again. One Marine was wounded. His side was torn by plasma fire. But instead of retreating, another Marine dragged him to cover, while the rest formed a shield of fire around them. Not one of them left him behind. Not one of them broke formation. The Trask saw this and froze. No predator species they knew would fight like this. Among predators, the weak were left to die. Among the Marines, no one was abandoned. That unity was more terrifying than any weapon. Within minutes, the strike force that had been so confident began to collapse. Hunters threw down their rifles and ran. Some crawlers turned back, their crews desperate to escape. The survivors screamed into their comms. "They do not fall. They do not break. They fight like one." From a high rooftop, Sergeant Hale raised his rifle and fired the last precise shot. The final drone exploded in the sky. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of crackling fire. The Marines stood tall among the ruins. They were tired, bleeding, but unshaken. Sergeant Hale spoke softly, his words carrying through the smoke. "They'll send more. Let them. We are Marines. And we never run." Those words reached the ears of fleeing Trask soldiers. They would carry them back to their base, back to their commander, and soon across the galaxy. The Trask Dominion had tried to erase the legend. But now, the legend was alive again, and every predator who heard the word Marine would never forget the fear. The strike force never returned in full strength. Only a handful of Trask soldiers made it back to the base, their eyes wide, their armor burned, their voices shaking. They carried no trophies, no prisoners, no victories. They carried only fear. The commander roared when he saw them. "Where are the bodies of the humans? Where is my proof?" But the survivors could not answer clearly. Their voices stumbled. They fight like shadows. They do not run. They do not fall. They are Marines." The commander's anger turned into silence. Deep inside, he already knew the truth. He had seen the ancient records. Now his soldiers had seen it with their own eyes, but it was too late to hide it. The whispers spread through the base faster than fire. The story moved from soldiers to workers, from workers to traders, and from traders to ships that traveled the stars. In taverns across the Dominion, aliens spoke in hushed tones. A single Marine broke a hunting squad. 5 Marines destroyed a strike force. They are not prey. They are something else. The word Marine became heavier with every telling. Soon the fear crossed into other species. On distant stations, predators who once mocked humans now avoided speaking their name. Merchants traded rumors with wide eyes. Pirates refused to raid human ships. Even the most violent species grew quiet when someone asked about the Marines. In the dark halls of the Dominion Council, leaders argued. One slammed his fist against the table. "They are just humans! Weak, primitive! We burned their villages to ash." Another answered softly, "If they are weak, then why do our strongest hunters fear a single word?" No one could respond. Across the galaxy, the stories grew more twisted. In one version, Marines could not die at all. In another, they could see in the dark and move faster than sound. Some said they were not human at all, but spirits of war wearing human skin. Every retelling made the fear stronger. Meanwhile, on the ground of Trask, the surviving Marines gathered. Their numbers were still small, but reinforcements had finally arrived. Dropships cut through the clouds, delivering more squads, more weapons, more supplies. The lone Marine who had first faced the hunters stood tall as he watched the new arrivals. His uniform was still torn, but his eyes burned with fire. He knew what was happening. He knew the galaxy was listening. Sergeant Hale joined him, helmet under his arm. "Word is spreading," he said calmly. "The predators are starting to believe in ghosts." The Marine smirked faintly. "Good, let them believe. Fear will do half our work for us." And it was true. Already the Dominion began to stumble. Armies hesitated before launching new attacks. Scouts avoided human patrol zones. Ships turned back when they saw the mark of the Marines. For the first time in generations, the predators of the galaxy were not the hunters. They were the hunted. Back in the Dominion base, the commander sat in silence, staring at the old battle records. His claws tapped the table again and again. He had tried to bury the truth. Now it was rising on its own. One of his advisors whispered carefully. "What do we do now?" The commander's voice was low, heavy with fear he refused to admit. "We prepare. Because if the Marines are truly back, then the galaxy will never belong to us again." And so the legend spread further. In hidden caves, rebels spoke of the Marines as saviors. In predator strongholds, leaders spoke of them as nightmares. Some saw hope. Some saw doom. But all of them remembered the same word. A word that was no longer just a name, a word that was becoming a force. Marines. The Trask Dominion could not allow the legend to grow any further. Rumors had already spread through half the galaxy. Other predator species were beginning to doubt the Dominion's power. Some even refused to join their wars. The Council made their choice. They gathered the largest fleet in years, thousands of soldiers, heavy crawlers, airships, and orbital destroyers. The order was clear. Crush the humans once and for all. Burn their colony. Show the galaxy that the word Marine meant nothing. The fleet descended on the human colony of Vera 4. It was a small settlement of farms, outposts, and one central command tower. To the Trask, it seemed weak, fragile, unprepared, but the Marines were waiting. Sergeant Hale stood on the wall of the command post, helmet on, rifle in hand. His squad gathered beside him, each one calm and steady. Behind them, civilians were being evacuated underground. Dropships carried children and elders to hidden bunkers. The sky turned black as the Trask fleet appeared. War drums thundered from their ships. Engines roared. The ground shook under the weight of approaching crawlers. One Marine muttered, "Looks like the whole Dominion came for us." Hale's voice cut through the fear. "Then the whole Dominion will remember what it means to face Marines." The first wave hit like fire. Plasma rained from the sky, burning trenches and walls. Crawlers rolled forward, their cannons tearing apart stone. Hunters charged with roars that shook the air. But the Marines did not run. From every trench, every rooftop, every hidden tunnel, they fought back with cold precision. Bullets cut down charging hunters. Rockets struck crawlers and left them burning wrecks. Drones exploded one by one, caught in precise fire. The Trask expected panic. They found only discipline. The Marines moved like one mind. When a wall fell, they shifted to the next line. When a man was wounded, another pulled him to safety, while two others covered with fire. Every move was controlled. Every shot was placed. The Trask had numbers. The Marines had something stronger. Hours passed, and the battlefield turned into chaos. Smoke and dust blinded the skies. The ground was filled with fire and blood. Yet still, the Marines held. Inside the Trask command ship, the enemy commander growled in disbelief. "Why are they still standing? Why do they not break?" An officer whispered, "Because they are Marines." The words chilled even the commander's spine. On the front line, Sergeant Hale stood firm. His armor was scorched, his voice hoarse, but his eyes burned with the same calm fire. He shouted to his squad over the roar of battle, "Hold the line! Let them come! Show them what Marines are!" The Trask charged again and again, but every time they were thrown back. Fear spread through their ranks. Soldiers hesitated. Crawlers slowed. Even their war cries lost strength. Then something happened that the Dominion had never seen before. The humans advanced. Step by step, the Marines pushed out from their defenses. Smoke at their backs, fire at their sides, they moved forward together. They were bleeding, exhausted, but unstoppable. One Trask soldier dropped his weapon and ran. Another followed. Soon, dozens turned back, fear heavier than orders. The commander roared, but his words meant nothing. The fear of Marines was louder. The battle was lost. By nightfall, the Dominion fleet retreated. Their ships left the burning ground behind, leaving silence in the colony. The humans were bloodied but alive. The civilians came out from the bunkers, staring at the Marines with awe. Sergeant Hale lowered his rifle. His voice was quiet but strong. "They came with an army. They left in fear. This is the turning point. From here, the galaxy will remember." The Marines stood under the smoke-filled sky, their silhouettes sharp against the fire. They were few, but they had broken the will of thousands. The Trask Dominion had believed numbers would win. Instead, they found something far stronger: unity, discipline, unyielding courage. For the first time, the predators of the galaxy had been forced to retreat. And for the first time, the name Marine was no longer just a word. It was a warning. The smoke of battle still hung over Vera 4. The ground was blackened, filled with craters, shattered weapons, and the broken machines of the Trask Dominion. The colony was scarred, but it still stood. The civilians came out slowly, their faces pale, eyes wide. They had seen death. They had heard the roars of monsters. But what they remembered most was how the Marines never gave up. Children stared at them with awe. Farmers, miners, and workers whispered to each other, passing the word again and again. The Marines held the line. That whisper grew into something stronger. It became a story. Far away, across the stars, the news spread faster than fire. Merchant ships carried tales of the battle. Smugglers added details. Witnesses swore on their lives that a handful of humans had stopped thousands, and the story grew. Some said the Marines fought for 3 days without rest. Others claimed they walked through fire without fear. A few even said their eyes glowed with the fury of Earth itself. The Trask tried to cover the defeat. Their commanders ordered silence, but fear cannot be hidden. Soldiers who survived carried the memory in their eyes. Every time they heard the word Marine, they flinched. Every time the humans were mentioned, their hands shook. The Dominion had power, but the fear was stronger. On Vera 4, Sergeant Hale sat with his squad inside the half-ruined command post. Their armor was burned, their weapons scarred, but their spirits were unbroken. Corporal Diaz, who had taken a wound to the arm, chuckled as he sharpened his blade. "We're not just soldiers anymore, are we? We're stories now," Private Lewis laughed. "Yeah, legends maybe. But I still want a hot meal first." Even Hale allowed himself a small smile. He looked at his team, then at the colony outside the window. Families rebuilding, children running in the dust, life continuing despite everything. "This is bigger than us," he said quietly. "What happened here will travel far. And when it does, the galaxy will remember. Not just today, not just us. They'll remember the name." He stood, lifted his rifle, and placed it on the cracked table with a heavy sound. "They'll remember Marines." In the following weeks, something unexpected happened. Other predator races, once loyal to the Dominion, began to hesitate. Some refused orders. A few even broke away, whispering that the Dominion could not protect them from humans. On fringe worlds, bar fights ended when someone shouted the word Marine. Pirates stopped raids on human colonies, afraid of what might be waiting in the shadows. Even mercenaries, hardened killers, turned down jobs against humans. The fear was everywhere, but to the humans it was more than fear. It was respect. They had been underestimated. They had been seen as weak. Now the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not a small voice in the dark. Humanity was a storm, and the Marines were its blade. One night, under the quiet stars of Vera 4, Sergeant Hale walked the fields outside the colony. The land was scorched, but new shoots of green were already pushing through the soil. Life always found a way. He thought of the Trask. He knew they would return someday with more ships, more armies. The war was not over. But Hale also knew something else. Something more powerful than weapons, stronger than numbers. The Trask had already lost. Not because of one battle, not because of one colony, but because of the legend. Fear spreads faster than fire, and now across the galaxy, every soldier, every commander, every predator would hear the same words before battle. Do not face the humans. Do not anger them. Do not fight the Marines. And so the legend was born, not from victory alone, not from strength alone, but from courage, unity, and an unbreakable will. The Marines had faced the predators of the galaxy. They had stood where no one else would. They had bled, fought, and endured, and they had made the galaxy afraid of a single name. From that day onward, whenever the word Marine was spoken, silence followed. Enemies remembered their fear, allies remembered their hope, and humanity remembered who they were, not prey, not weak. Not forgotten, but the warriors who could turn fear into a weapon. The story of Vera 4 would be told again and again. Around campfires, in spaceports, on warships crossing the stars, and each time the story would grow, because legends never die, and the legend of the Marines had just begun.